Welcome back to episode 2 of In the Driver's Seat. And whilst I have been, I promise, doing some work to the cars, you'll see a video coming out soon enough of me restoring the shift linkage in this car, completely rebuilt, new bushes, reassembled, re-greased and everything else like that. I have been doing some more thinking. And what have I been thinking about this week? Well, not really anything that's been in the news, but as an enthusiast of classic cars, you guys probably know yourself, you always keep a little watchful eye on the market, looking at the prices of either what you've got and what it might theoretically be worth if you decided to sell it, and what things you want are going to cost you should you decide to trade up. Now, when people think about the classic car market, they tend to sort of talk about the market as a whole, but really there's two sections to the classic car market. You've got your sort of high-end investment pieces, so the guys that spend money on things to get them into events, so Concours events and Pebble Beach and all of those real sort of high-end things, or alternatively the sort of the guys who like to do the historic racing. Now obviously those cars trade at very, very high values, and they always have, and the behaviour of the pricing in that market is often very different to what I would include myself in, which is very much the low end hobbyist kind of classic car market. But it's always interesting to see how the market's performing, and the way it seems to me to be going at the moment, and this is backed up with some research, is when we came into COVID, so sort of 2021, that kind of time. I mean, I've desperately tried to blot that period of my life out. I had some great times during COVID, but I also had some pretty horrendous times. And I think a lot of people who were furloughed or who had money to spare because they didn't have to drive to work, invested quite heavily into classic cars, and really kind of drove the price of a lot of automotive stuff really quite high, artificially high, it would appear, because in the time since then the market, certainly at the top end, has kind of tailed off a little bit, and in fact prices for high-end classic cars during 2023 sort of nosedived right down, and now just beginning to kind of find a bit of a happy medium. So we've had a big artificially hiked sort of priced market due to COVID, followed by a little bit of a crash, followed by things leveling out. It doesn't really sort of play out that way in terms of the hobbyist market, but I have noticed some interesting kind of trends. So, as you know, I'm sitting inside a late 60s Fiat 500, and the market for these cars has been steadily increasing, and did show a little bit of an artificial rise when we were in the COVID kind of era and coming out post-COVID. I mean, a car like this at that time, restored, would probably have been trading at about maybe £8,000, something along those kinds of lines. Now the market's settled down. I think a lot more have come over from Italy since then, and although the restoration standards are variable, certainly for a left-hand drive car like this, you're looking at a restored one being around about £7,000. So the fluctuations are much lower. Obviously, earlier models, suicide door ones and things like that, tend to be a lot higher in price due to rarity, and right-hand drive ones over here in the UK certainly again trading a little bit higher. So much of a muchness, really. I mean, Fiat don't have the same sort of scene tax attached to them as you get with Volkswagens. Volkswagens always have been, I would say, overvalued. I've been in the air-cooled Volkswagen world for quite a long time, and even when I was buying and selling those, I would always have said that they were overpriced for what they are. There are still cars that are accessible to you and me that are almost a license to print money still. So anything Focus, anything Ford RS badged is now getting really out of reach, and that seems to be regardless of the rest of the market. There's something in the UK about buying into the Ford RS badge or the Ford Cosworth badge that basically is now beginning to bring it well out of the reach of the average hobbyist. What other things have I noticed? Well, again, those of you that follow my channel know that I'm really into hot rods and custom cars and things like that. And again, that part of the market has seen a lot of different kind of changes. I mean, I'm in my 40s. I'm really too young, theoretically, to be into the hot rod scene. Because certainly those are not cars that I grew up with. Those are not things that I would have aspired to when I was younger. So the prices of things like 20s and 30s Fords, now the main market, the buying demographic that drove those prices up in the 80s and 90s, those guys are thinning their collections out, or to be brutally honest, they're dying off. And the interest in that era of car has again kind of tailed off. So old American iron is no longer worth gold. You know, rusty old crap coming over from the States is not priced as highly as it was. It's starting to come down to again make it accessible to people like me that just fancy having a bit of an old car to hot rod up and tool around in. As in the UK, they've started clamping down on the registrations and actually getting a V5 for an imported car. You're struggling now, or people are struggling now more so than they have in the past, to bring over things like ready-built hot rods, because it's really obvious that they've been modified, and it's really difficult to kind of, well, not really difficult, but it's more difficult to register them over here unless you're kind of in the know and you know what you're doing. Whereas full-fended cars, so your 50s and 60s cars, they tend to be now going up in popularity because it's much easier to have a hot rodded modified version of one of those and yet still register it relatively easily, because a lot of the modifications and things that might cause you some issues are a lot more difficult to see. You know, you don't have open fenders, you don't have anything like that is going to make it really obvious that you've got modifications. So that end of the market again is behaving differently to your sort of 60s Euro classics, different to your high end, but something that has really, or an area that really has shown a massive increase are the early 80s to mid 80s cars. So again, thinking about buying demographics, cars from the 80s, so we're thinking about, you know, not even like your BMW M3s and things like that, but things like your E28 BMWs, your E30s, your E23s, your Mercedes 190Es. Those are the kind of cars that a lot of people my age did aspire to when they were kids. And obviously now that we're of an age where, I mean, whilst I have a young daughter, a lot of people I know of my age and slightly above and even slightly younger have much more grown-up families, and we've got a lot more disposable income. People are now going, okay, well, I want to buy some of those cars that I wanted when I was younger. Audi Quattros, you know, the sort of things. And as a result, the market for that is very hot at the moment. I mean, I've had a lot of 1980s BMWs. The last one that I had was an E23 7 Series. It was a 1983. I bought it for 700 quid, fixed it all up, sold it for £4,000, I think it was, and that was about 6 years ago. You can't pick those up for that kind of price anymore. I was looking around, and the lowest price E23 BMW that I could find was around about £7,000 at the moment, and that's not all due to inflation. You know, that is fundamentally down to the fact that more people want those. So classic car market, or the used car market, the old enthusiast used car market, is a real kind of interesting ballpark at the moment, and like everything else in life, it really depends on what level you're playing at and how much money you've got as to whether what you own is rising in value or whether what you own is falling in value. Obviously, cost of living has had an impact on everybody's disposable income, but still, hot market at the moment, 80s hot hatches, 80s BMWs, that sort of thing, those are on the up. Cars like this, you know, your sort of 60s Italian things, they're always going to be pretty popular. I don't see the prices of those going up, but I also don't see the prices of those falling anymore. Prices of old American, I think the market for that is now very, very niche. As I say, most of the people that were into those are of an age where they're either not driving anymore, they are thinning out their collection, or they're just not around anymore. So those kinds of prices are going to go down. They're not good investments, but they're damn good cars to have, and they're damn good fun. So, you know, really, what do you want out of your classic car? Do you want it as an investment? Do you want it as a bit of fun? Do you want it as a hobby? So those are my musings for this week, and you know, let me know what you think. I'm always interested in other people's comments on what I've been whittering on about, and as I say, there will be a proper video on my restorations and my kind of mechanical stuff, but you know, I'll catch you again with another view from the driver's seat in a week.